The case file lands on my desk with a soft thud. I don't look up right away. After 20 years on the bench, you learn that urgency is rarely what it pretends to be. The leather chair beneath me creaks as I lean back, my fingers still wrapped around the pen I've been using to sign orders all morning. Judge Clara Reynolds. That's what the nameplate says. Polished brass, clean letters, sitting right there at the edge of my mahogany desk where everyone who enters can see it. I earned that title, every single letter of it. The silence in my chambers is thick today, the kind that wraps around your thoughts and makes you remember things you've spent years trying to forget. Outside my window, the city hums with its usual chaos. Car horns, distant sirens, the muffled voices of people rushing to places they think matter. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. But in here, it's just me and the decisions that never get easier. I reach for the file, flipping it open with the mechanical efficiency of someone who's done this 1,000 times before. Fraud allegations, corporate misconduct, a law firm accused of falsifying documents, and bleeding clients dry with promises they never intended to keep. Standard stuff, really. My eyes scan the plaintiff's complaint, then drift to the defendant's information. That's when my heart stops. Not dramatically. Not like in the movies where everything freezes and the music swells. No, it's quieter than that. More devastating. Like the moment you realize you've been holding your breath without knowing it, and suddenly your lungs are screaming. Adrienne Clarke. The name sits there on the page, black ink on white paper, as ordinary as a death sentence. I read it again, then again. My hand steadies itself against the desk because my mind is already somewhere else. 20 years back, in a cramped apartment that smelled like coffee and broken dreams, watching the man I loved pack his things while I stood there pretending I wasn't falling apart. You wanted more, he said. More than late-night study sessions and second-hand furniture and a future built on hope instead of money. He wanted Vivian, with her designer suits and corner office smile and family connections that could open doors I didn't even know existed. I didn't cry that day. I promised myself I wouldn't let his leaving define me. And I kept that promise. I built myself into something he could never touch, never diminish, never walk away from again. I became the kind of woman who doesn't flinch when old wounds try to reopen. The kind who learned that justice isn't about revenge, it's about balance. But now here he is, 20 years later, not as the man who kissed me in law school libraries, but as a defendant in my courtroom. The file trembles slightly in my hands. I set it down carefully, smoothing the pages as if that might somehow smooth the chaos rising in my chest. Adrienne Clarke isn't just any defendant. He's the ghost I thought I'd buried, and now I have to decide his fate. What would you do if the person who broke your heart ended up at your mercy? Drop your thoughts below. I can still taste the ramen. That's the strangest thing about memory, how it holds onto the small stuff while the big moments blur. But I remember those nights in our tiny apartment, the one with the leaking faucet and the neighbor's dog that barked at 3 in the morning like clockwork. Adrienne would sit across from me at our thrift store table, case files spread between us like a war we were fighting together. His hair would fall into his eyes when he concentrated, and he'd push it back with ink-stained fingers, muttering about precedents and loopholes until I'd lean over and show him the answer he'd been missing. We were a team back then, or at least I thought we were. He was ambitious in a way that felt hungry, restless, like he was always looking past whatever we had toward something shinier, just beyond reach. I was the steady one, the person who believed that good work and dedication would carry us through. Love wasn't flowers and fancy restaurants for us. It was splitting the rent when his part-time job fell through. It was staying up until dawn to edit his thesis when he'd hit a wall and couldn't see straight anymore. It was the way he'd kiss my forehead and whisper that we were going to make it. I paid our bills more months than I didn't. I told myself it was temporary, that once we graduated and passed the bar, things would balance out. Partnership isn't about keeping score, right? It's about showing up. So I showed up, until the night he asked me to meet him at Romano's, this Italian place downtown that we'd always walk past but could never afford. I remember being confused, maybe even excited, thinking he'd gotten some good news about a job offer. I wore my only good dress. The restaurant was dimmer than I expected, all candles and cloth napkins and wine glasses that probably cost more than our monthly grocery budget. Adrian was already seated when I arrived, but he wasn't alone. Vivian sat beside him. Perfect posture, designer blouse, diamond bracelet catching the light every time she moved her wrist. She had this smile, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes, the kind that says I've already won. Adrian cleared his throat. That's when I knew. Before he even opened his mouth, before he stumbled through his rehearsed speech about needing more and wanting different things, and how Vivian understood his ambitions in ways I couldn't, I knew. Vivian's smile widened across the table, and something inside me went completely silent. Have you ever had someone look you in the eye and destroy everything you built together? Keep watching. Heartbreak doesn't scream. That's what no one tells you. It doesn't shatter windows or slam doors or make dramatic exits. It just sits there in your chest, quiet and heavy, turning everything gray. I walked home from that restaurant alone. Adrian offered to call me a cab, which almost made me laugh. Like courtesy could somehow soften what he'd just done. Like manners mattered when you're tearing someone's life apart. I said no. The walk took 40 minutes, and I don't remember a single step. Our apartment felt different when I got back. Smaller somehow, like it had already started erasing us. I sat on the couch we'd bought together at a yard sale and stared at the water stain on the ceiling that we'd always meant to fix. I didn't cry that night, or the next. I moved through the days like I was underwater, everything muffled and distant. I went to class, took notes, submitted assignments. People asked if I was okay, and I said yes, because what else do you say? But the silence taught me things that love never could. It taught me that pain is a choice you make every morning, whether to carry it or use it. It taught me that the person who breaks you doesn't get to define what you become after. It taught me that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming someone they could never have imagined. I took the bar exam 3 months later, not because I was ready, but because staying still felt like dying. I studied with a focus I'd never had before, the kind that comes from having nothing left to lose. At night, I'd walk past the courthouse downtown, this massive building with columns and steps that seemed to rise forever. I'd stand there on the sidewalk, looking up at those windows that glowed even after everyone had gone home. One night, I whispered to myself, to the building, to whatever version of me was waiting on the other side of all this hurt. One day, I'll belong here. The city kept moving around me, indifferent and loud. But I meant it. I tried dating again about a year later. A nice guy from the prosecutor's office, someone who took me to dinner and asked about my day and did all the things you're supposed to do. But I couldn't let him in, couldn't risk that kind of vulnerability again. Adrian's betrayal had built walls I didn't know how to climb. So I focused on work instead, on briefs and motions and the clean logic of the law. At least justice made sense. At least courtrooms had rules. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Judicial appointment. My name, my credentials, my future folded into official letterwork that smelled like new beginnings. I held it for a long time before opening it. In that same afternoon, I saw the headline on someone's abandoned newspaper. Clark and Vivian LLP opens downtown. Power couple dominates corporate law. The photograph showed them both, polished and successful, standing in front of their firm's gleaming sign. When success finds you and your past haunts you at the same time, which one do you choose? Stay with me. Years reshape everything. They smooth sharp edges, blur clear lines, turn certainties into questions you stop asking. I built my career case by case, ruling by ruling, learning that justice isn't about being right. It's about being fair even when fair feels impossible. People called me balanced, firm, but merciful. The kind of judge who listened before deciding, who weighed evidence like it mattered because it did. My nameplate got heavier with each year it sat on that desk. Meanwhile, Adrian's firm grew into something that cast shadows. Clark and Vivian LLP became the kind of name that made boardrooms nervous and clients wealthy. They took cases other firms wouldn't touch, found loopholes in contracts that seemed airtight, made problems disappear with the right paperwork and the right connections. On the surface, everything gleamed. But I heard things. You always hear things in legal circles, whispers that travel through courthouse hallways and bar association meetings like smoke under doors. Clients who felt cheated, documents that didn't quite add up, signatures that appeared on papers people swore they'd never signed. I never commented, never asked, never sought information I had no business seeking. But I listened, because some storms don't need thunder to be dangerous. Some justice waits quietly, patient as stone, like breath held before truth finally breaks free. My life became routine in the best way. Predictable mornings, challenging cases, evenings spent reading in my apartment that overlooked the city. I'd stopped looking for Adrian's name in the news, stopped wondering if he ever thought about what we'd had. I told myself I'd moved on. Maybe I even believed it. Then the case file arrived, thick as a phone book, marked urgent with red tabs sticking out like warning flags. Plaintiff versus Clark and Vivian LLP. Fraud allegations. Breach of fiduciary duty. A client claiming the firm had systematically drained her company's assets through falsified consulting fees and forged authorization forms. The evidence was damning. Spreadsheets that didn't balance, emails with deleted timestamps, a paper trail that wound through offshore accounts and shell corporations like a maze designed to lose people. I read through it twice, my coffee going cold beside me. This wasn't some minor dispute. This was the kind of case that ended careers, that sent people to prison, that stripped away everything someone had built. And Adrian's signature was on half these documents. My clerk knocked softly, poking her head in. Judge Reynolds? The preliminary hearing is scheduled for next week. Courtroom 3. I nodded, keeping my face neutral, professional, revealing nothing. She left, and I sat there in the silence that had become my closest companion, staring at his name on the page. 20 years of distance, of separate lives, of carefully constructed walls. And now this. The universe has a dark sense of humor sometimes. What would you do if you held your ex's future in your hands? The courtroom is waiting. The courtroom feels different when ghosts walk into it. I'm already seated when they arrive, my robe pressed and perfect, my hands folded on the bench in front of me. This is my territory, my domain, the place where I've spent 2 decades learning how to separate emotion from duty. But my heart is hammering like I'm 22 again. The doors open, and I force myself not to look up immediately. Let them settle. Let the moment breathe. Control is everything in a courtroom, and I won't surrender it to my past. When I finally lift my eyes, there he is. Adrian Clark, older now, his hair touched with gray at the temples in a way that would look distinguished if circumstances were different. He wears an expensive suit, the kind we used to joke about never being able to afford, and his shoulders carry the weight of someone who spent years pretending confidence is the same as certainty. He looks up. Our eyes meet. The air between us becomes electric, charged with everything we've never said, never resolved, never properly buried. 20 years collapse into seconds. I watch recognition move across his face, surprise, then something deeper, something that might be fear or regret or both tangled together. He freezes just for heartbeat. Then Vivian appears beside him, sharp angles and calculated elegance, her hand resting on his arm with casual possession. She's aged gracefully, the kind of woman who probably has a team of professionals helping her do it. The diamond bracelet is gone, replaced by something larger, more expensive. She doesn't recognize me at first. Why would she? I was nobody to her then, just a girl being replaced. Adrian whispers something to her, his face pale. Understanding dawns in her eyes. Her spine straightens. Her expression hardens into professional neutrality, but I catch the flicker of something else. Calculation, maybe concern. Good. The bailiff calls the court to order. Everyone rises, then sits. The familiar ritual grounds me, reminds me who I am in this space. Counselor Clark, I say, my voice steady, revealing nothing. You may proceed with your opening statement. He stands, but his usual smoothness is gone. He clears his throat once, twice. His notes tremble slightly in his hands. I've watched lawyers argue in my courtroom for 20 years. I know the difference between nerves and guilt, between preparation and improvisation. Adrian is drowning, and we both know it. He begins speaking, Words about misunderstandings and accounting errors and clients who don't understand complex financial structures. His voice has that practice quality. I remember the charm that used to work on professors and study groups. It sounds hollow now, rehearsed. I let him talk, watching not just what he says, but how he says it. The pauses that last too long. The way his eyes won't quite meet mine. The slight tremor when he references specific documents. The plaintiff's attorney presents their evidence. Damning, methodical, impossible to ignore. I listen to everything with the attention I've trained myself to give every case. But when it's time for questions, I lean forward slightly. Mr. Clark, I say, and something in my tone makes the whole room go quiet. Did you, or did you not, personally authorize these signatures? His voice cracks, just slightly, just enough. The truth always has a sound, and right now it's breaking. Don't go anywhere. The courthouse hallways echo with my footsteps. Court adjourned an hour ago, but I'm still here, walking these marble corridors like they might hold answers I haven't found yet. My robe is hung up in chambers, replaced by the simple blouse and slacks I wear underneath, but I still feel the weight of it. The weight of everything.
These are the same halls Adrian and I used to dream about back in law school. We'd visit courthouses on field trips, whispering to each other about which chambers we'd occupy someday, making promises about the kind of lawyers we'd become. Funny how dreams survive, even when the people who dream them don't. I pause by a window overlooking the city. Rush hour traffic clogs the streets below, everyone desperate to get somewhere, to be someone, to matter. From up here, it all looks so small. Once, I wanted him to see my success. I wanted him to know what he'd thrown away, wanted him to feel the sting of his own short-sightedness. I imagined scenarios like this, him standing in my courtroom, finally understanding who I'd become. But now that it's real, all I feel is tired. Not angry, not victorious, just exhausted by the weight of carrying old wounds this far. The thing about Adrian is that he wasn't cruel. He was weak, and weakness, I've learned, does more damage than cruelty ever could, because it pretends to be something else until the moment it isn't. I remember the way he used to laugh, really laugh, bent over our shared textbooks with his whole body shaking. I remember tracing his hand while he traced mine over case law, both of us memorizing statutes and each other in the same breath. That person feels like someone I invented, but the memories are real, and they hurt in ways I stopped admitting years ago. In the courtroom today, I watched him unravel, not with satisfaction, but with something closer to grief. He's drowning, sinking under the weight of choices he made long after he left me. And part of me, the part that loved him once, wants to look away. But I can't. Justice doesn't blink. My phone buzzes. A message from my clerk. Judge Reynolds, Mr. Clark has requested a private meeting. 5 minutes of your time. Shall I schedule it? I stare at the text for longer than I should. Every instinct I've developed as a judge tells me to decline. Personal history has no place in professional proceedings. The case should speak for itself, decided on evidence and law, nothing more. But I'm also human, and maybe some conversations need to happen, not for closure, but for clarity. I type back, tomorrow. My office, 4 p.m. The city below keeps moving, indifferent to the small earthquakes happening in people's lives. I press send. Some conversations we avoid for decades. Others find us anyway. What happens next will change everything. He's early. I find him standing in my office at 3:55, staring at my diplomas on the wall like they're written in a language he's forgotten how to read. He doesn't hear me enter, too lost in whatever thoughts are eating him alive. You have 5 minutes, I say. He turns, and I see what 20 years actually did to him. Not just the gray hair or the lines around his eyes, but something deeper. Something that looks like regret wearing a suit. Clara. My name sounds different in his voice now. Smaller. Thank you for seeing me. I don't sit. Don't offer him a chair. This isn't that kind of meeting. For minutes and 40 seconds, I say. He flinches, then nods. I was wrong. About everything. About leaving, about Vivian, about thinking success was the same as happiness. The words tumble out like he's been rehearsing them for years. The firm, the money, the reputation, it's all smoke. I lost Vivian's trust years ago. We're business partners now, nothing more. Cold contracts and colder beds. I keep my face neutral, but something twists in my chest. I never stopped thinking about you, he continues. Not romantically, I lost that right. But the peace you carried, the way you could find stillness in chaos. I've spent 2 decades chasing things that disappear the moment I catch them. The silence between us grows teeth. Why are you telling me this? I ask, because I need you to know that when this case destroys me, and it will, I'll deserve it. Not because of what I did to those clients, though that's real too, but because I destroyed the one person who actually saw me. His voice cracks. The one person who loved me when I was nobody. I walk to my desk, putting space between us, putting furniture and years and choices between what we were and what we are. Do you want absolution, Adrian? Is that why you're here? No. He shakes his head. I just wanted you to know that you won. Not the case. I mean you won at life. At becoming someone who matters. Someone who... Stop. The word comes out sharper than I intend. I didn't win anything. I survived. There's a difference. He looks at me with those eyes I used to know, and I see the question forming before he asks it. Did you ever love me still? After everything. The question hangs in the air like smoke. I could lie. Should lie, maybe. But I'm a judge, and judges deal in truth even when it cuts. I never stopped loving who you used to be, I say quietly. But I stopped waiting for him long ago. That man died in a restaurant 20 years ago, and I mourned him. What you became after, that's someone I never knew. His shoulders slump. My phone buzzes. The court clerk with the verdict file, ready for my signature. The final decision, typed and formatted, waiting only for my approval. Adrian's fate, literally in my hands. Thumbs up, I say. When the past asks for forgiveness and the present demands justice, which one wins? You're about to find out. The courtroom is packed. Every seat filled, cameras positioned, reporters with notebooks ready. This is the kind of case that makes careers and breaks reputations, the kind that people will reference in law journals and courthouse gossip for years. I enter through the judge's entrance, my robe flowing behind me like armor. The room rises. The ritual never gets old. This moment when chaos becomes order, when voice is quiet and attention sharpens. This is my domain, the place where I matter most. Adrian sits at the defense table, Vivian beside him, but somehow separate, like they're occupying the same space without actually touching. Her face is a mask of professional composure, but her hands grip the armrest too tightly. She knows what's coming. Everyone sits when I do. The air feels electric, charged with expectation and dread, and that particular tension that exists only in courtrooms where lives are about to change forever. I have the verdict in front of me, typed on official paper, signed by the jury foreman 3 hours ago. I've read it 4 times, checking not just the words but the weight of what they mean. My job is to deliver justice, not mercy. To uphold the law, not rewrite it based on personal history. Has the jury reached a verdict? I ask, though I already know the answer. The foreman stands. We have, Your Honor. The charges are read one by one: fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, falsification of documents. Each one comes back the same way: guilty. The word lands in the courtroom like stones dropping into still water. Adrian's head lowers. Not dramatically, not with tears or outbursts, just a slow acceptance of something he's probably known was coming since the day those documents surfaced. But the verdict is just the beginning. Now comes sentencing, restitution, the dissolution of everything he built. I lean forward slightly, my voice carrying across the silent room. Clark and Vivian LLP is hereby dissolved, all assets frozen pending restitution to the victims. Mr. Clark, you will surrender your license to practice law. Ms. Vivian Clark, you will face separate proceedings regarding your knowledge and involvement. My voice doesn't tremble, not from cruelty, but from control, the kind that comes from knowing that power wielded carefully is power that actually means something. This court upholds justice, not history, I say, and the words feel true in a way that settles something deep in my chest. The law applies equally to everyone, regardless of who they used to be or who they thought they'd become. Adrian lifts his head just enough to look at me. Our eyes meet one final time across the distance of decades and decisions and all the ways people fail each other. I see understanding there, maybe even respect. Court is adjourned, I say, and bring the gavel down. The sound echoes. As I stand to leave, Adrian's voice carries just loud enough for me to hear. You were always the real lawyer. I don't respond. Don't acknowledge. Just walk through the side door into the hallway where my life waits, separate from his, finally and completely. Justice served. But is it over? Stay with me for what comes next. Weeks pass like water. The case makes headlines for a few days, then fades into the background noise of a city that's always moving toward the next scandal, the next drama, the next thing to care about before forgetting. I go back to my regular docket, custody disputes, contract disagreements, the endless parade of human conflict that needs someone to decide what's fair. My life returns to its comfortable rhythm. But something's different now. Lighter, maybe, like I've been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there until it finally lifted. I'm home on a Saturday afternoon, tea cooling on the table beside me when the mail arrives. Bills, advertisements, a charity gala invitation, and one envelope that doesn't belong. The handwriting is familiar even after all these years. I hold it for a long moment before opening it, feeling the texture of the paper, the weight of whatever's inside. Part of me wants to throw it away unopened to maintain the clean break I've finally managed. But curiosity wins. It always does. Inside is a single page, his handwriting neater than I remember. Clara, thank you for your fairness. For not destroying me when you could have. For proving that justice and mercy can exist in the same person. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I was too blind to see then. You were always the extraordinary one. I was just lucky enough to stand near your light for a while. I hope you found the peace you always carried so naturally. You deserve every good thing this life can offer. Adrian, something small falls from the envelope when I unfold the letter. A photograph, creased and faded, edges soft with age. It's us in law school, sitting on the library steps, surrounded by textbooks, his arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling like we knew secrets the rest of the world hadn't figured out yet. We look so young, so certain, so completely unaware of how quickly everything can change. I stare at it for a long time, remembering not just what was, but who I was before heartbreak taught me to build walls. That girl in the photo trusted easily, loved fully, believed that partnership meant something permanent. She wasn't wrong to believe those things. She was just wrong about the person she believed them with. I stand up, walk to my bedroom, open the drawer where I keep things that matter but don't need to be displayed. Old letters from my parents, my first judicial appointment certificate, a watch my grandmother left me. I place the photograph inside carefully, not in a frame where I'd see it every day, but somewhere safe where it can exist without haunting me. Some love stories don't end. I whisper to the empty room. They just stop needing to continue. My phone lights up with a message. Judge's Charity Gala invitation. Guest of honor, Clara Reynolds. I smile, close the drawer, and move forward. The past is finally where it belongs. But one more chapter remains, the one where everything comes full circle. The gala is all soft lights and expensive dresses. I arrive wearing blue, something elegant but understated, my hair pulled back in a way that says professional without trying too hard. This isn't about making statements. It's about showing up for a cause that matters. Legal aid for people who can't afford justice. The ballroom glitters with the kind of wealth that makes me uncomfortable, but the money goes to good places, so I smile and shake hands and accept congratulations for cases I've handled with fairness. People see the robe. They don't always see the person underneath. I'm talking with a fellow judge about upcoming legislation when I see him across the room. Not at one of the donor tables or mingling with the lawyers who still have their licenses. He's at the registration desk, wearing a simple volunteer badge, helping people find their seats. Adrian looks different here. Smaller somehow, like success was a costume he's finally taken off. Our eyes meet across the crowded ballroom, and something passes between us. Not longing, not regret, just recognition. Two people who survived each other, who went to war with their own choices and came out changed on the other side. He nods just slightly. I nod back. That's all. No grand reunion, no tearful conversation, no rekindling of something that burned out decades ago. Just two people acknowledging that they existed in each other's stories and somehow both made it to the other side. The evening moves on. Speeches are given, donations pledged, champagne sipped from glasses that catch the light just right. I accept my award, guest of honor for commitment to judicial excellence, and give a short speech about fairness, about showing up even when it's hard, about the difference between revenge and justice. People applaud, and I mean every word. Later, as the lights begin to dim and the crowd thins, I find myself alone for a moment on the balcony overlooking the city. The same city we both dreamed about conquering when we were too young to know that conquest isn't the point. Time doesn't always heal, I think. It refines. It strips away everything that doesn't matter until you're left with the truth of who you actually are. Love doesn't always return. It reveals who deserved it. Adrian deserved the woman I was, but he would have ruined the woman I became. And that's okay now. Finally, completely, totally okay. I hear footsteps behind me, but when I turn, it's just another guest looking for quiet. Adrian has already left, already moved into whatever version of his life comes after everything falls apart. As the city lights blur below me, I realize I'm not thinking about him anymore. I'm thinking about the cases I'll hear next week, the book I'm reading, the vacation I've been planning, the life I've built that belongs entirely to me. He left me for a lawyer. But in the end, I became the judge who taught him what justice and love truly meant. The gavel in my courtroom isn't just about law. It's about knowing when to hold on and when to let go. It's about understanding that some people leave your life so you can finally become who you were always meant to be. And I did. The night closes around me like a promise kept. That's the end of Clara's story, a journey from heartbreak to healing, from pain to power. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next powerful tale. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your words might inspire someone else who needs to hear that they can rise too. Because the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming someone so complete that the past can't touch you anymore. See you in the next story, and remember, your worth was never determined by who stayed. It was always determined by who you became after they left.